Amen.
So we're in Matthew. Well, we stopped in Matthew chapter 6. We're going to look
Matthew 6.
in. If you don't have a book, the Sunday school book, it's all right. Uh, we'll look at the passage of Matthew chapter 6, verse 11. But then also today we're going to be looking at Isaiah chapter 38, verses 1 to 3. And so,
So it's Matthew 6 and Isaiah
chapter 38. Here, great. We covered Isaiah already. Let's go instead. Let's go to. We're still looking at Matthew 6, but let's go to John 17.
John 17.
Yeah, John 17, 11 through 16. So here in John chapter 17, this section is known as the high priestly prayer of Jesus. Now we've been looking in Matthew chapter 6. We've been looking at another prayer that there's some difference in opinion as to whether or not Jesus actually prayed this prayer. This prayer is called the model prayer. Some will say that Jesus did not pray this prayer, but he gave this prayer as a outline of or a guide as to how we should pray. So, but here in John chapter 17, this one is called again the high priestly prayer, where Jesus prays this prayer, and it's called the high priestly prayer because in this prayer, as you read it, Jesus is acting as our high priest. Again, in the book of Hebrews, Jesus is referred to as our great high priest. Uh, his priestly ministry is different from the other priests in the past. And so when you read this prayer, as we read along, you'll notice where Jesus exercises the role of a priest. And so, what then is the role of a priest? The priest will often go before God on behalf of the people. That's the role of the priest. He will intercede for the people. He will offer sacrifice for the people. He will speak to God on behalf of the people. Uh, and so, uh, here in John chapter 17, we see Jesus doing this in multiple ways. And then what's happening here, though, is that not only is Jesus praying or interceding, but he is getting ready to offer a sacrifice. But in this particular case, what sets Jesus apart from other priests is that in offering a sacrifice, he doesn't just offer any sacrifice. He doesn't take a lamb or a goat or some animal that the people have brought to him and offer that on the altar. What Jesus does that distinguishes his priestly ministry from others is that he offers himself on the altar. So therefore, that's what makes him a great high priest. So here, let's look at John chapter 17, verses 11 through 16. You want to read for us?
Mhm. So I'm in the King James, just so you know.
Okay.
And let's see, verse 11. I will remain in the world no longer, but they are still in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them by the power of your name, the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one. While I was with them, I protected them and kept them safe by the name you gave me. None has been lost except the one doomed to destruction, so that Scripture would be fulfilled. I am coming to you now, but I say these things while I am still in the world, so that they may have the full measure of my joy within them. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. That's the King James Version.
Okay. All right, thank you. So you notice in this prayer uh, that Jesus uses he uses specific language that kind of lets us know that this is his prayer. You know, he interjects himself into the conversation between him and God as he is interceding on behalf of the people. He says, "I am no longer in the world, but they are." So while Jesus was here, he protected his disciples. Remember when people raised accusations against his disciples? What would Jesus say? He said, "You know what? He talked about on one hand when they were accused of doing certain things on the Sabbath day that according to the Pharisees and scribes was unlawful. And Jesus said that he was Lord of the Sabbath. And so notice also that he says he says he says I'm no longer in the world, but they are in the world. Implying then that by him no longer being in the world, well then that would leave them vulnerable. That leave them open and needing protection. The protection, uh, a similar protection that they might receive and benefit from had he still been here. Once he goes away, he says, "I'm coming to you." He says, "Holy Father, protect them." Notice what he's doing here is he's directing the Father's attention to who? To the disciples. He says, protect who? Protect them. Protect the disciples. Protect them how? By your name that you gave me. Jesus is calling upon the Father to protect the disciples in the same way that he protected Christ. Now, through the power of his name. He says, so that they may be one as we are one. And so you see then in this way that Jesus is constantly interceding on behalf of his disciples. Look, if you will, look down at what on the bottom at the bottom of our page 88. Uh, if you can't have a book right, that's okay. Let me read this way. Mm-hmm. He says in John chapter 17, verse 11 through 16, we find Jesus' prayerful concerns for others and was even on display the night he was betrayed. Early that evening, Jesus had shared a last meal, the Passover, with his disciples. This was his last opportunity to teach them before his arrest and crucifixion. And after he taught them, he prayed for them. Jesus was leaving the world, but he was leaving his church in the center of it, a world that wasn't and still isn't immediately receptive to a message of repentance and faith. The world would prove to be a dangerous place, so Jesus prayed for two things. These two things that Jesus prayed for. And we'll talk about these in detail. He, he prayed for one, protection from disunity, and then two, protection from spiritual attack. Protection from disunity. He said, Jesus prayed for God to protect his followers so that they may be one as we are one, meaning so that the disciples would be one with each other in the same way that Jesus was one with who?
Father.
With the one with the Father. Yeah. Why do you think that it's important, at least in the mind of Jesus, that the disciples would be one with each other?
I mean, then when they're all one, they're one body, and you don't want your body to be fragmented because it's weaker that way.
True. They were going to need the strength and support of one another. And when you think about this, for Jesus to pray this prayer that the disciples might be one, it's interesting, I think, that Jesus would have this concern for his disciples, that they would be one with each other. Now, if you think about it, while Jesus was here, who understood Jesus? Who shared in his ministry in a way that Jesus could be one with?
Well, he was here. When you say,
I mean,
well,
if you think in terms of a marriage now, when we start talking about being one, when we start talking about unity, why is being unity so important? You know, I mean,
well, you guys have the same goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's important, you know, for goals, you know, purpose,
Direction and vision.
I mean, even the way you face adversity. When you think, I mean, when you have the same mindset. Think about it. And so when you think about it, and it's interesting Jesus prayed this prayer because in Jesus' earthly life, who during his earthly life did he share these things with? Who did he have these things in common with?
Well, he had.
You talking about before his disciples?
Well, I mean, just during his earthly ministry. Really, you might say that there was no one. Because when Jesus started talking about death, when he started talking about when he started talking about a lot of things that he mentioned, when he started talking about how that his life had a purpose, when he started talking about going back to the Father, when he started talking about, even when he talked about, performing miracles, it meant most of these times, even the disciples didn't have a clue what he was talking about. The disciples didn't understand what he was talking about on many occasions. People around him were clueless. Matter of fact, if you recall, when Jesus talked about being one with the Father, what did people say? Isn't that?
Thought it was blasphemous.
They accused him of committing blasphemy. Because see, he was on a different mindset. when Jesus talked about destroying this temple, they thought he was talking about what?
The actual physical.
But what was he really talking about? He was talking about his own body. Remember when Lazarus, when his friend Lazarus was sick? What happened? They said, let's go to him. And Jesus, and what happened? Here, this is a form of adversity. A friend of Jesus is sick. Mary, this one of Lazarus' close relatives come and give Jesus the news, and then does Jesus come right away? No. He goes in a different direction. And then what happened? Even the disciples said to him, they remind about that. And Jesus tells them what? This sickness is not under death. What does he mean? They don't understand. They don't understand the purpose. Why is he not concerned about that? He just said it. He's near death. Why is he not concerned? Why doesn't he go and be with me? So notice then, when these things are happening, there's no one who understands in the physical sense. There's not another human agent that understands Jesus' purpose in life, his missions, the way he faced adversity. There's nobody who thought like him. So he couldn't just have received the comfort of somebody else saying, "Hey, look, man, you gonna die. You're going to be crucified on the cross. You're gonna get up from the grave, and you know what? Countless individuals are gonna believe in God because of you." No, no. What did they say when he's dying? He said, "You know what?" He called on God, see if he'll save him. He said he's the Son of God.
Take yourself down.
He said, "Yeah, come down from the cross, that sin we may believe." So Jesus didn't have anyone else to share in a physical way. So that makes, to me, when Jesus prays this prayer, here's something that Jesus realizes in his own life and ministry is important. And so he wants for his disciples to have this. That's huge. It's huge when you want for others to have that something, that key element that is a big deal and was missing. This thing would have made a totally tremendous impact in my own life and ministry had I had this. So therefore, I want the next person to have it.
Would you say that there's kind of parallels in Genesis where when God created a man, he said man should not be alone? Would you say it kind of parallels it or expresses that thought?
You might. More important, I think, what it does though, is it expresses the same thought, especially as fathers. I think you will. I mean, we fathers, we want for our sons, we want for our children, we want for them to have things, we want for them to experience things, we want for them to not have to go through the same adversities that we went through. And so what do? We try to prepare and parent to that end. We try to help them to choose a good mate, the right mate early in life. So what? They don't have to go through all the giving your heart to somebody, then you turn around and get disappointed.
know what I mean? Like how he's concerned here. He sees the importance of having someone to relate to. So it seems like God in Genesis, he also kind of noticed after he created Adam, I don't want man to be alone. So he
Yeah.
takes from.
But wait, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that is, it's a human element. It's a way in which we were designed, and that's, you might say, when he created Adam, that's the one thing that God knew that did not exist. You know, here Adam has the responsibility, if you will, of naming all the animals. And as he sees them, these two here, they share similarities in a way. This other animal over here they share similarities. But then by looking at the other life, forms of life, we're talking about animals, you name it. So then it would create a curiosity and a wonder when we look at ourselves. You know, these here are different from me. I'm not like them. So the man could say that for Adam, the ability to be able to look within his surrounding and find a way in which he can relate, well, that's something that's missing. So then, hence the reason why God would say it's not good. And so then when he takes the rib from the man and closes him up and creates the woman and then presents her to the man, well then his response will be what? No, this is woman. He's now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. You know what? He can relate to her. And that's a way in which we all have been designed to relate in some way. You know, we put like kind together. You know, if you go buy shoes, you don't buy one high top and one low top. You know, if it's supposed to be a car, you look for two low tops or two high tops. You don't want a pointed shoe and a shoe with a pointed toe and a shoe with a square toe. No, you want it supposed to be, if it's a car, it's supposed to be two square toes and two pointed toes.
So what you trying to say, woman is like man?
No,
No, she ain't.
well, not in every way. Not in every way, but guess what? One thing that we know is true is that while there may be at times the clashing of the male and female, but there's something about the being in her presence that we desire.
Yeah, I see.
And vice versa.
She's human, so
She's human. She's that's, I mean, what do we say? Not lust, but that's our companion. But they don't think on the same wavelength of a man. I mean, he made it for our companion, for our personal use, but she also have her own identity separate from a man.
And
So
what
let
does
that man a competition.
and what does that do for us? To know that she thinks she thinks just like he thinks, and though she might think differently, what does that do for him? You know what? It gives him an objective viewpoint. You know what? You don't if somebody else thought exactly the same way you would, it might be kind of cool for a little while,
If we
but at some point it's gonna get old.
it's a diversion,
Right? You know,
nerve wracking.
and you can't get your thoughts out because it's not already said. You finish your words for you, finish your sentences for you. You know. So sooner or later, you want to be able to express yourself in your own unique way. But you want when somebody who understands what you're saying, understands what you're doing, understands the reason why you do it this way. We desire that, and that's what is so unique here, and that's what I think Jesus wants for his disciples. He wants for them, and that's the something that Jesus looked to his Father for, because who understood his purpose for being here? The Father did. Who complimented Jesus from a human standpoint? Nobody else complimented him. Nobody else said, hey, you're doing a good job. Well done. No. Who complimented Jesus? The Father did. Remember? Remember at the Jordan River after Jesus was baptized?
This is my son, well pleased with.
The Father spoke from heaven. He complimented Jesus. So think about it. Notice then, it was important, and this was a big deal for Jesus. Jesus had to limit himself in this way, to looking to the Father. And not that that's bad. It's not bad at all. We should do that. But from a human perspective, Jesus knows also that it's important for humans, for mankind, to be able to share a camaraderie, to share a oneness, if you will. The question was asked by one in the Gospels. How can two walk together unless what? Unless they agree. We can get a lot more done how? Together. Divided, you can't get anything done, right? So Jesus understands this important. Look what he says here. In verse 11 he says, so that they may be one as we are one. Now notice what he's done now. What Jesus has done here is he doesn't just pray for his disciples to be unified, for them to have this unity. But is there a standard? Well, how? How does Jesus want them to be unified? How does he? What's the pattern, if you will? He says in verse 11, he said, I'm praying for them so that they may be one. So that word "as" is a similar. It makes a comparison. So Jesus he's comparing the oneness that he has with the Father. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
He's comparing that to the oneness that he wants for the disciples to have with each other. And so Jesus' desire is that the unity that the disciples would have with each other, it would be just like the unity that Jesus has with the Father. That's the standard. He wants it to be of the same kind. He wants for it to look the same, sound the same, feel the same. Think about it.
So, branching from that, then, and this is just me thinking, this seems to, and correct me if I'm wrong, this seems to suggest that having all these different denominations kind of it goes counter and against.
See, you asking, you thinking. Yeah, I like the way you're thinking. Keep going.
Well, I mean, yeah, because his prayer was that we would all be one. So, of course, Lucifer, Satan would want us to be divided, and it's much easier to attack and destroy that way. I mean, I just your thoughts on that. It seems like that's
I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. Now, these are the disciples. They watched Jesus for 3.5 years. They ate with him. They slept with him. They listened. They heard his teachings. You know what? They woke up in the morning with Jesus. They laid down in the evening with Jesus. You know, they went to his prayer. And he's calling for them to be one. In the same way he was with God.
so it would suggest that if the Son of God made a prayer that we would all be as one, we should then embody that. Otherwise, now we have confusion everywhere. That it seems like, would you say that needs to be reconciled for any progression?
Unity among disciples, among believers in Christ is a big deal. I think that's prime. That should be at the very forefront of everything else. It was so important that Jesus prayed about it. Now Jesus could have prayed about it. He could have prayed about a lot of things. He wasn't concerned about how they gonna get him right. He didn't pray. He didn't pray that they would, that they would not have to deal with the ridicule of the Pharisees and scribes. He didn't pray for that. He didn't pray for them to be able to perform miracles. But there's a possibility that they will come, but that's not what he physically and specifically prayed about. He specifically prayed about the unity that they would have amongst each other. And he used as a pattern, he used as the example, the unity that exists between him and his Father. When I was studying that Southern Bible, and when it came test time, well, we would all semester long, whatever, we would have our discussions and class time and all that kind of stuff. Then we come time we talk about, or sometime during that class, he might say, well, now if you were to see this question again, and he's literally telling us that you're gonna see this question again. Or he'd say, we had a reading assignment, and he would say, now, the first question that's gonna be on your test is, have you done the reading assignment? It's a yes or no. So you automatically know this is important. There was those things he told us. He said, sometimes he would specifically say, this is going to be on your test. So the point is that there's those clues that he gave us that would indicate us that this is something we need to specifically remember. This is something we need to pay close attention to. And I think that's what Jesus is doing here, is he's saying, This is something that you need to pay attention to. And so, you could ask, how well have we done in this area? I think we've done very good. What's up here? Questions, comments? Let's pray. Father, thank you for this time together. Father, we pray that you would help us in this area of unity, that we would